Hello and welcome to highlights of Season 6, Round 4 of the HRZN Racing League, the iconic Belgian Grand Prix. My name is Chris, otherwise known as Screamlight, going to be taking you through the highlights from this race where wet tyres for at least one lap in the race was the wild card. But before we get into today's action, let's take a look at how the season's shaping up so far. I'm Your Mate has made it 3 for 3 out of Singapore, Australia and Spain, but won't be partaking in Belgium, so there'll be a new race winner on that calendar. Next is a season break followed by the random race, then it's Imola, Austria, Japan, Qatar, Abu Dhabi and Vegas. But as you can see, I'm Your Mate won by 22 seconds ahead of Six Pompano and Vampire. Bunny's Vengeance got driver of the day in 4th, with Bazza, Sykes-Snopes, Elijah, Scottish, Thundercart, Andy making it your top 10 point scorers. Only AIM DNF'd from the Spanish Grand Prix. Everybody else picked up participation points where applicable. That means in the overall standings, I'm Your Mate leads the way by 20 points from Six Pompano, who also isn't driving in Belgium, which will give the Scottish an opportunity to move up and ahead of him. Bunny's Vengeance, Sykes-Snopes, Bazza, Elijah, AIM, Vampire, Sproke, Thundercart, Andy, Perpetual, Dabosaurus, Macjan and Vibs have all taken points so far this season. But we got a new entrant, Hydrojax, joined the HRZN Racing League after the last round and gets his own dedicated driver standings page for now. I'm Your Mate leads the way in Platinum class ahead of Six Pompano and the Scottish, who are level on points. Vampire has points on the board, but will be looking to pick up more. Tommy will return for the Belgian Grand Prix and hope to get away from zero. In the gold class, Sykes-Snopes leads Bunny's Vengeance by 3 points, with Elijah, Sprout and Perpetual all also picking up points, the only class to have all drivers scoring points. In silver class, Bazza leads the way ahead of Andy. AIM is 3rd, with Vibs in 4th, who's missed a couple of rounds. 3 Portas yet to get off the board, as he hasn't partaken in any races so far. In bronze, Thundercart leads the way ahead of DJ Dabosaurus and Macjan. Rover back for this round, also yet to score after a DNF in the first round and missing the last 2. And in D-Class, DRS Sign leads the way after 2 victories in class ahead of Scornful Griffin, who hasn't raced for a couple. Lewis took his first start last time out and got points on the board, and Joker did in his debut. Jimmy, the only driver there who's driven so far and is yet to score. Everybody else yet to drive. In the Constructors, Ferrari leads the way ahead of RB and Haas, who jumped McLaren after the last round. Alpine, Williams, Sauber, Mercedes and Red Bull all with points. Aston, with both drivers missing the last 2 rounds, with 0, and HRZN Racing yet to score overall points. So that's how we're looking, heading towards Spa-Francorchamps, a circuit that every single person knows in any motorsport discipline. Let's take a look at the iconic Belgian circuit. One of the most iconic circuits on the calendar, Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, 7.004 kilometres, 19 turns, winding through the Belgian forest. Michael Schumacher has the record for the most wins in the real world, while Jacob and I'm Your Mate have taken victory in HRZN. Every corner is iconic here, I think we all know them so very well, but we head down towards La Source, brake heavily, get nice and tight to the apex on the inside. Don't go too wide, since the gravel's been put on the outside, will punish you if you go too distant to the left. Slight kink is turn number 2 before you head to Eau Rouge and Radion, the iconic uphill section. Really can keep your speed up. Try not to move the car too much before you head onto the Camel Straight, else it will compromise your run all the way down here towards 789 Les Combes. You can ride the curb on the inside if you wish. You can also ride the curb through the middle and get nice and wide on exit before swinging the car back through into turn number 9. You head then down to Brosel, turn number 10. You can keep right on the apex letting the car just run out wide and take a little bit there as you go into 11, often known as No Name or X, as you head down now towards Pouon. This long left-hander, you've got to keep your pace, take a little lift to make life a little easier just to balance the car before heading down towards Campus 13 and 14. Again, take a little bit of entry curb, don't run too wide out on compromise 14, but take some exit curb before heading into 15, Stavolo. Medium speed corner, this one you want to keep building the pace as you go through Courbe Paul Frere. And then it's just the long run towards the end of the lap. Turn 17 to the left, Blanchimont, and through turn 18 as well. Minimal steering angle just to keep the speed up before you head into the bus stop chicane. Real heavy braking and get it nice and turned in for the first part. You will get some rear end slip through the second part of the bus stop, but then it's back up to the start finish line. Thanks past me, that was Belgium, a lap that we all know, we've all seen so many times. How is our grid looking for this one? Hydrojax took debut pole with a level time with AIM 44, but Hydro took it first, hence why he's up the top. Tommy returns to third, with Snipes retaining fourth as he has most reigns this season. Vampires fifth, and it's Elijah, Bazza, Bunny's Vengeance, Jimmy Alex ninth on return, with Andy reigning out the top 10. Matt Chan took 11th ahead of Perpetual. JJ Thundercart was in 12th. And then it's Rover, Dabosaurus. Sproat was the only one knocked out in Q1, and the Scottish once again joined late and starts from the back of the grid. So that's our 17 drivers for this one. Don't forget, everybody has to run a wet tyre for at least one lap. Let's get into the action from Belgium. One light, two lights, three lights, four lights, and five. It's a long hold again, but away we go in Belgium, and they head down to turn one. The pack is already splitting up. Hydrojax gets away wonderfully well, though. Let's look further back. There's a contact in the middle. I think that was Vampire, possibly into Elijah and Bazza. Bazza's fallen all the way down to 14th place.
I want to jump you, but I'm too scared.
So let's take a look at what happened at the start with the Mercedes and the two Haas guys. It actually spawns from Matt Chan, who's starting a bit further back, because he gets really good revs off the line here, actually managing to jump Jimmy, who's ghosting a little longer than some of the others. Gets round the Ferrari nonetheless, but gets a little bit late onto the brakes into La Source, taps Vampire, who then goes into Elijah, who then goes into Bazza. And we'll watch it on board from Bazza as well, just so you can see how the trajectory of everybody affected him out of La Source. Again, holding the revs wonderfully off the line. He's got Elijah to the left-hand side and Vampire just ahead. But as he gets off the line, he gets a better start than Vampire, moves to the centre of the circuit. And he's just looking for space as they all cascade into La Source. He gets to the outside, but as Elijah gets tapped, his rear wheel collects Bazza's front and sends Bazza off into the gravel. And that's everybody back past. I think Vampire got hot into turn one as JJ gets a little cut off there by Jimmy through Eau Rouge and Radion. It's right on board with JJ. He's got Dabosaurus behind him looking. Hydrojax has been passed into Lecom by AIM. AIM takes the lead in the Sauber. Tommy immediately catching up to the back of these guys. Sprout, Andy, Scottish Bazza are all kind of moving positions further back. What's happened to Andy? He's just been shuffled back in the pack there. Bazza all the way down in 15th as Andy gets it all wrong. Bazza tries to go up the inside. It's a tough move to pull off into Bruzel, but he backs out of it. Rover and Perpetual at the back as Scottish and Sprout go side by side, and Scottish goes up the inside, runs it wide. Sprout's going to fight him back. Let's ride on board with the McLaren, but the Scottish, with so much more pace, heads straight back past. But the battle at the top, you're quite right, there is a battle for the win possibly. It's 0.3 of a second. Hydrojax has got back in front. Not sure what happened there. Hopefully we'll get a viewpoint of that later. But Tommy now is following closely. He's with AIM. He's going to try and go up the inside into Blanchimont. That's a brave move in any type of car, let alone an F1 car. And AIM now under pressure from Snipes, who's going to try to go around the outside into the bus stop. Makes it. Looks like AIM backing out for the wet tyres immediately. So let's watch on board from Tommy's perspective here how AIM and Hydro switched positions. You'll see them going into campus. They get wheel to wheel. Both cars drift. And both cars manage to survive. Tommy backs off to avoid going into the back of the Sauber. And is then immediately on the attack. Gets squeezed on the entry to Stavelot. But as we saw, we'll go past heading through Blanchimont. Elijah also pitting. There's all kinds of action going on further back. Rovers in the pits too. They look to be getting those wet tyres out the way first. Scottish already passed both JJ and Dabasaurus, but JJ fighting him back here. Side by side, the Scottish gets better traction out when he's through. The gaps are not massive. AIM, Elijah, Rover. Let's have a look quickly. Yeah, Rover on the full wets, Elijah on the full wets, AIM on the full wets. All of them going for it now as JJ goes past Jimmy round the outside into Ix. Eventually, Dabasaurus is going to take a look here. We'll ride on board with the Mercedes. Going to go at the inside at Pouan. Jimmy tries to defend the position, doesn't make it, and now he's going to be under threat from Sprout. Dabasaurus moving up to 9th. Sprout all over the back of the Ferrari. He's going to go for the move up the inside. No, Jimmy says no into campus. Great defensive driving by our D-Class driver. Tommy now out of DRS range on Hydrojacks. That's certainly going to make it a lot more difficult to catch up. Let's stay with Sprout and Jimmy. Let's ride on board with the Sauber. He's going to try and go around the outside at Blanchimont. Jimmy's going to have to defend. Sprout has to back out a touch. Maybe he's going to look to the inside at the bus stop. It would be a late move from there. Jimmy, though, a little wide. There's contact. They've got caught together. I think Jimmy was trying to head into the pits. So they both go in now. I genuinely believe Jimmy was trying to head into the pits there. It's a tough pit entry. Now, this was the only incident that was referred to the stewards from the Belgian Grand Prix, and it starts all the way back at no-name. You see Sprout getting a little wide, but as you can see up ahead, Dabasaurus is going at the inside of Jimmy Alex into Pouan. They almost make contact, perhaps even do slightly, and Sprout is now weaving around in the mirrors, trying to just find a way past Jimmy, who he feels he's faster than at this point. They go into campus, has a little look at the inside. Jimmy gives him the room, but runs wide coming through the next corner, which is what happens when you compromise that line on the way in. Into Stavelot, Jimmy maybe a little drifty, the rear end stepping out of touch. But on the exit of Stavelot, Sprout is pulling up to the back of the Ferrari and will be alongside before they get into Blanchimont, but only to the rear quarter of the car. Maybe half at a push, but needs to back out because the natural curvature of the corner is not going to help you on the outside. They head into the bus stop. You see Jimmy Alex gets really late on the brakes, runs wide, and is right up against the outside apex. Sprout turns in here,
doing?
And then they collide.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
We'll see that on board with Jimmy as well. You can see in the rearview mirror the Sauber is moving side to side trying to find a space, while Jimmy's also trying to react to Dabasaurus ahead. You'll see him drifting out wide through the exit of campus and in Stavelot once again, maybe a little off the apex as he's trying to get it slowed down. Dabasaurus has now moved slightly away, which would give him a little bit of breathing space up ahead. But as they head up towards Blanchimont, you can see the Sauber to the left. You can see the arrows there as well. Now this is where it begins to get interesting and why the penalty that you're about to see, the 5 seconds that was applied to Jimmy's time, was levied. As we get into the corner, he brakes late, Jimmy goes deep. But as you can see, there'll be a bit of left hand down, and then the cars connect to each other. A little bit of in-game physics there. There was also some after-race discussions, and Sprout also copped a 5 pp on his licence. So it looks like they're taking their wet tyres now. As we head up towards Vampire and Snipes, that wonderful overhead camera as Snipes goes past. Bunny's Vengeance goes past Mac-Chan, who had a really great start to the race. Up there in 5th briefly, but he moves out the way, lets the Scottish through. That's great team play. Not the first time the McLarens have done that this season. Mac-Chan already falling off the back of the Scottish, who's chasing Bunny's Vengeance. Season 1 and Season 2 champs here. As Vampire staying right with Snipes. Tommy's fallen off Hydrojacks, but these 4 look like they could be quite close. Bunny trying to break the toe to the Scottish, who I thought he was going to take a look into the source, playing the long game here. But he just out of DRS range on Vampire ahead. We're right on board with Vampire for a second, because he's going to be the first one to get DRS out of Radion. He's going to be right on the back of the Alpine. Doesn't defend too hard as the Scottish goes past Bunny behind us. AIM finally bailing off the wet tyres. Yeah, there's the Scottish going past Bunny. The gaps are starting to open just as people are taking their pit stops, as we see Andy trying to go around the outside into Les Combes on Davasaurus. Does it. Bazza has to settle in behind again. But he might have a go here, you know. Had to back out of it as Davasaurus got a little bit wide. But down the inside into Bruxelles. It's a great move from Bazza. Let's watch this one from Bazza's POVs behind Davasaurus and Andy. You can see that Andy's gone around the outside going into Les Combes. Davasaurus keeping a tight line, but not really able to get the traction down. Nearly loses the rear end there. Bazza checks up to avoid the back of the Mercedes. But it's up the inside down to Bruxelles. A really, really nice move from Bazza. Bazza and Andy are going to be the next battle along, and there's Bazza going by. He's through. Nice clean move on his way back through. So far, Elijah, AIM, Rover, Jimmy and Sprout have all done their wet tyre phase. Davasaurus gets the 3-second time penalty here. As Tommy goes past Bazza through Blanchimont. Looked a clean move there from Tommy. But not having done that wet tyre stunt. Mac-Chan goes past Jimmy down the back. Rover getting a 3-second time penalty. He's got those two in for close company as well. So let's watch that battle from onboard with Mac-Chan. You can see Jimmy having to check up in front behind Rover. Both of them riding the curves at this point. But Jimmy's rear end is skating ever so slightly as soon as we're known Mac-Chan is on the battery to get the attack. Gets up the inside of Jimmy. But as they go into pull-on, they both drift a little wide. Mac-Chan almost cutting across the Ferrari, avoiding contact, and they both continue on about their day. AIM and Perpetual are side by side, but the connection issues really hampering Perpetual. So he ghosts and AIM goes through. The pit window is open for the full wets. Very wide into La Source. I think that's going to give Elijah a clear opportunity here. As Rover and Jimmy continue to fight further back. Into Eau Rouge and Radion, they go side by side. And Elijah's through, and then Perpetual glitches further back. That looked to be a great move regardless. As Syke Snipes and Andy switch places, Mac-Chan now with a 3-second time penalty. They're going to start to rack up as Perpetual has retired. I don't know whether he's put it in the wall or whether he's just pulled off to the side of the road, as we've got Rover, Mac-Chan and Jimmy almost going 3 wide. And they all somehow make it through Les Combes. Let's ride on board with Mac-Chan, these three battling through a couple of laps. First off, you'll see that Jimmy's gone inside at Blanchimont. Rover's trying to defend the inside into the bus stop. Matt gives Jimmy a little push. And also then taps the back of Rover, taps Jimmy, and is now behind Rover across the line. They're side by side heading into La Source, but as you'll note, everybody got through the bus stop fairly unscathed. Round the outside for Jimmy into La Source. Doesn't quite work out for him, gives Mac-Chan the opportunity, and they're all now just trying to give each other ample space as they head towards Eau Rouge and Radion. It's Jimmy that goes at the inside, Rover backs off to allow the Ferrari through. Mac then picks up a 3-second time penalty through Eau Rouge, but now has the DRS behind the two cars in front. Tries to follow Jimmy, has to back off, then ends up following Rover up the Camel Straight. He's past Jimmy, at least for now, but he gets a little rear end kick. Jimmy will try and come back, doesn't make it through. And then we'll watch that on board with Rover from the perspective of the driver as well. You can see here at this point Rover ahead of the pair of them, but only just. And then you'll see the Ferrari in the proximity arrows popping out alongside. Watch the rear view mirror though, because you'll start to see everybody converge together. There's Mac-Chan falling a little bit further behind, then there's Rover backing off to let Jimmy through into a Rouge, knowing that 2 into 1 won't go there. Heads up through Radion onto the Camel Straight, gets the DRS, and they'll be right behind Jimmy. As you'll see, the McLaren pops into the rear view mirror as well. Rover makes it up the inside, but then you'll see behind Matt-Chan and Jimmy fighting it out through Lake Hon. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 2. Let's run through the order quick. It looks like Rover's had a moment. I'm not sure what's happened back there, but Rover passed by Sprout down to the back. See what happens to Rover from his perspective first, then we'll move on to Matt-Chan as well. As you can see, they head into P1. Matt-Chan looking at the inside, both giving each other ample room here. But as you can see, heading into campus, Rover's still trying to defend from the McLaren. They get a little caught on the outside. Rover's the one that comes off a little worse, ends up in the grass. Stream freezes for a brief second, but as you'll see, he rolls back out onto the circuit and back out on his way.
You can tell I haven't put that in our own battle.
We'll see what caused the little kick from Rover as we go on board with Matt-Chan into P1. Looks at the inside, backs out of it knowing that there's going to be an inside for sure, but stays on the outside. He's about halfway alongside the Aston at this point as Rover tries to take the line. They clip tyres, sends the Aston off to one side, and they bounce off each other. And then Rover's the one off, and Matt-Chan carries on. But let's get back to the Tommy Hydrojax battle here, because Hydrojax on the wets. Tommy yet to take a wet tyre phase, as Davasaurus is in probably to do his now, move to the wet tyres. Hydro, yeah, struggling on the wet tyres as you'd expect. Tommy gets crossed up through Bruxelles. He's not going to make a move through X, surely. He isn't, but he does go through and past Hydrojax to move into third place. That's the net lead as it stands, but still needs to do that wet tyre stop. As Tommy now goes chasing after Bunny's Vengeance, clearing Hydrojax for now as AIM retires. AIM's retired. What's happened to the Sauber? Pulls to the side of the road. Looked like it was missing half the front wing, but AIM is out now as well. I don't know what happened to the Sauber, but we just saw it pulling off to the side of the road with half a front wing. Whether they've made a mistake and then decided to just pull it in, as Tommy's in the pits, Bunny's in the pits, Vampire's in the pits. Hydrojax moves to the top of the standings with the wet tyres on. Bazza closing on them now with the hard tyres. Snipes moved into third. This time I'm going to pull the tyres up. Tommy is now moving to the full wets. As Bazza with the DRS will move to the lead of this race, or will he? No, Hydrojax will hold that position, but round the outside through the middle of Lake Arm. Bazza takes the lead, and Snipes now will be closing on the Williams as well. It's right on board with the Dutchman. Hydrojax here may just be looking to try and run the hard tyres for a couple of laps just to make it easier in terms of fast tyres later, as the Scottish went past Andy further back. Hydrojax and AIM saying exactly the same lap time. Hydrojax first. So started on pole on debut of 41.837, I think it was, for the two of them, as Rover gets a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pits. As Tommy stays to the inside here, knows Elijah's coming. Elijah's going to try and stay around the outside, but Tommy gets the elbows out, keeps in front of the hat, and then drifts through Lake Arm. Great defensive driving by Tommy. Fairly easy going, I think, for Hydrojax out at the front. Tommy also being fairly comfortable. There's a little battle, I think, brewing behind, with the likes of the Scottish Bunny's Vengeance, maybe even Bazza as well. Davasaurus running long here, is up in 6th, but has the Scottish for company, as Bazza comes out just in front of the Welshman. Bazza, I think, on the wet tyres now, so might be about to get stitched up by 2. First by his fellow countryman, who has to take to the grass to go by. Yeah, on the wets in the Haas. Scottish is going to try and just duck through the middle. Davasaurus holds it on the outside at Lake Calm, but the Scottish makes it through. Not for the first time today. The Scottish heading into the pits again. He's already done his wet stint, so whether he needs to set up another dry stint, because Tyres don't look to be holding out as Elijah goes in, so yeah, JJ moves into 9th. This will be his last race of the season as he heads off to South America for 6 months. So RB going to be down to 1 driver as Matt Chan heads in again. JJ out ahead of the Scottish. It's not for the first time that these two have been on track today. It's right on board with the Scottish, who are immediately up to speed. JJ tries to defend, but the Scottish will get the DRS and he's through on the Kemmel straight. Andy trying to take a tighter line through Stavolo. Try and ward off the Aston Martin here. I don't think it's going to work as Sproat has gone past Rover down at the back. Heading up towards the bus stop though. The other Aston Martin attacking the Alpine. Is he going to get him into turn 1 into La Source? I think he might, you know. Andy's not going too defensive. I think he knows the tyre offset's too great. And Tommy moves past. The Scottish now. Fastest lap, 44.979. He's turning there on at the end. Is it going to be enough as JJ's pitting in, needs to bin off those tyres now as well, I think. The dry is not really lasting, but Andy's going to come back at Tommy here with the DRS. Andy looking racy here, as we've also got Davasaurus in. But Andy moves back into P5. There's Tommy now, following Andy through Stavolo. This is the battle on track at the moment. It's kind of futile for Andy, but he's not going to give up the position too easily, even with stops still to make. It looks like he might be trying to run the hard tyres all the way to practically the end and then run the wets right at the death. See if he can mix it with the 2 Haas boys by the end of this one, but Tommy's going to have another go into La Source. This is letting the Scottish close in on the pair of them, but Andy quick enough to just keep the Aston behind. But you can see it's a traction race off the corner, and Tommy's got all of the traction in comparison to Andy as they head towards Eau Rouge and Rallion. Tommy's just going to bide his time. He can just run so much tighter through that section of track. Has to stop right in behind. DRS is wide open. Andy stays to the inside. He's going to try and defend into Les Combes, but Tommy's... No, I was going to say Tommy's done it. There's a little bit of contact as Andy drifted wide. But racing incident there. Tommy now through, and I think he's gone. Flick back through as the Scottish is now all over the back of Andy. Just the 5 to go, including this lap. Vampire, Bunny, Andy still, and I think Syke Snipes too, still really yet to make the wet switch as Scottish had a little look, was halfway alongside, sensibly backed out of it, but he's going to go for it into Campus. They're side by side and he's through. And you can see now Hydrojax is caught right up to the back of Bunny's Vengeance. The Williams now line the stern. Hydrojax obviously a D-class driver, so will be scoring points for Horizon Racing rather than Williams. Bunny, though, surely knows he's still got to hit that wet tyre stint, so is, you know, on the edge of it here. Hopefully Vampire, Bunny, Syke Snipes and Andy all know. Well, Andy will definitely know, but the rest of them all know that they do need to make that change. Else it will be a disqualification, which could really change the result here. As we've got Hydrojax with the DRS. Through goes Hydrojax to quietly paraphrase Crofty, I guess. Moves into P2. That is the net race lead with stops still to be taken. As Dabasaurus, he'd run wide through Stavolo, but manages to close right back up as we get into the bus stop. There might have been a little bit of contact there side by side. Oh, but I think Jimmy's lost the rear somewhere.
These tyres are done.
Let's watch Jimmy and DJ into the bus stop here from Jimmy's perspective. As they head through Blanchimont, DJ is on the fresher tyres and is right up behind the Ferrari. They go into the bus stop. DJ's up the inside. Jimmy, again, gets slightly nudged to the apex but turns to the left. Gets on the power too early. The rears, with no grip, spin him out. And DJ's on his way. Championship battle-wise, it is now Tommy and the Scottish on track together. Can Tommy hold off the McLaren? Dabosaurus now gets a time penalty for track limits as Hydrojax has gone past Vampire up at the top of the order. But we're going to stay with the Scottish as they head through Eau Rouge and Radion. He's chasing the Aston Martin down here. Penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. Surely he's got the pace with the DRS. It pops the DRS open. Nothing Tommy can do about that, surely. He's past the Aston Martin. Late on the brakes from the Aston. And keeps it on the inside at Les Combes. Great defensive driving from Tommy. Is it the best move, though, to stay in front now? Was it more of an idea to slot in behind the Scottish and get DRS in the final lap? We'll find out. As Vampire, Bunny, Psych Snipes and Andy still yet to do their wet tyres as far as I'm concerned. Might be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that's the case. We'll stay with Tommy and the Scottish, though, because I think that's where the battle's going to be. Jimmy's close to Dabosaurus now. As Hydrojax has taken off at the front. We'll be starting the final lap in just a moment. As Vampire now comes in, so we'll be doing the last lap on the wet tyres. Bunny surely as well. Psych Snipes too. There should be enough between Psych and Andy for them to both get in and out without any hold-ups, as all three of them are in. There's Tommy defending. There's a little bump from the Scottish. DRS is open. Tommy stays to the inside. They might not even get back past Bunny's Vengeance, who gets out in front of them. Tommy, big kick of oversteer out the corner. Oh, there's a little bit of glitching as well. Bunny's not far ahead and he's on the wet tyres. Vampire's actually managed to stay in P2 as well. Tommy didn't get DRS from Bunny, who's going to be in the way of this battle as well. Elijah's gone past Andy while he's in the pits. The Scottish has to back out nearly into the back of Bunny. As Tommy also into the back of Bunny's Vengeance. They're 5 seconds off Vampire, who might actually take P2. Tommy up the inside. Bunny stays ahead of the Scottish, at least for now.
Come on, Williams, give me DRS.
Let's watch this last lap battle with Tommy, Bunny and the Scottish. From Tommy's perspective, first off, you can see the Scottish is all over the back of the Aston Martin through Eau Rouge and Radion. They'll get the DRS. Tommy doesn't have any DRS at this point, but Bunny, you can see, is now a rolling roadblock up ahead. The Scottish goes by, but you'll see him disappear off to the left as he tries to avoid the Williams. Tommy taps the back of Bunny, and again, as Bunny's struggling for grip. Taps him once again as we head into Bruxelles. Tommy will get on the battery and is able to be later on the brakes with the dry tyre. Goes up the inside, and you'll watch the Scottish do the same just behind. Scottish is now through. 4.1 seconds to close up to the back of Vampire to try and take P2. We've got Hydrojax heading towards Blanchimont. I'd love to watch him cross the line, but at this point, it's the chase between Vampire, Tommy and the Scottish. Where is Hydrojax? Heading up to the bus stop. We'll go back to those guys in just a moment as JJ moves past Andy further back. Right on board with Andy in the last lap. This is actually mentioned just after in comms. There's a little later in the lap from where we saw JJ, or heard JJ, got past. Andy running the wet tyres, just no grip as he tries to slow down. Goes straight into the gravel. Sets off a yellow flag at the end, but doesn't manage to get overtaken and will continue to hold 10th. Hydrojax on debut, though, will take victory in Belgium. It's all about who's going to finish second. Vampire on the wet tyres is being hunted down by Tommy and the Scottish. This is for second and third on the podium. Vampire might actually stay ahead of them, you know. Tommy and the Scottish going side by side into the bus stop. Tommy defends. Is Vampire going to make it across the line for P2 on the wet tyres? It's going to be close. Yes, he is, though. Vampire takes second. Tommy's third. Scottish is fourth. Bunny will take fifth. Sykes Snipes will roll across the line in 6th. There was a yellow out in sector 2. I don't know what's happened. I think Andy might have binned it because he's lost 8 seconds in a sector. Baza comes home in 7th, a really solid result for him. 8th goes to Elijah. He crosses the line. JJ will take 9th in his final race for the season. Andy will get across the line in P10. Fairly comfortably in the end ahead of Mac Chan, who'll cross the line for P11. Dabasaurus will cross the line in P12, but will lose that position with penalties to Jimmy, who'll take P12. Mac Chan will also jump. No, Jimmy will jump to P11, then it's Mac Chan, then Sprout is 14th and last. But Hydrojax takes victory on debut. What a Belgian Grand Prix that was. The wet tyre wildcard definitely spiced things up, particularly at the very end. Let's take a look at the classified results. Hydrojax takes a win on debut by 27 seconds ahead of Vampire, who held out to get driver of the day with that wet tyre stint at the end. Tommy completes the podium. The Scottish is 4th with fastest lap minutes. Bunny, Sykes Snipes, Baza, Elijah, JJ and Andy are top 10. Matchan, Dabasaurus and Sprout get participation points, with Rover, Aim and Perpetual not managing to finish. Means that the gap at the top decreases with I'm Your Mate not driving. The Scotch moves into 2nd ahead of 6 Pompano, with Bunny, Syke, Baza, Vampire. Up behind Elijah is 8th. Hydrojax jumps 20 places to 9th, with Aim, Tommy, JJ, Sprout, Andy, Dabasaurus, Mac-Chan, Vibs and Perpetual, all with points so far. And we have another new driver who's joined post-race. Stevie Jr. joins to make it a full 30 across all of Horizon Racing. That means that in Platinum class, the Scottish jump 6 Pompano with I'm Your Mate and 6 not driving this time around. Vampire closes up to the back of them with his result, and Tommy finally gets points on the board with his first finish of the season. In gold, Bunny's Vengeance moves 1 point ahead of Sykes Snipes, with Elijah, Sprout and Perpetual holding their stations. In silver, Baza leads the way ahead of Andy, Aim and Vibs. 3 ports are still yet to drive, but Baza increases that gap ever so slightly. In bronze, JJ leads the way before completing his last race for this season, with Dabasaurus in 2nd, Matchan 3rd, Rover with 0 points still yet to finish so far this term. And in D class, we're up to 11, with Syme holding the lead as it stands. But Hydrojax moves immediately up to 2nd with his victory. Scorn is in 3rd. Jimmy gets points on the board to go with Lewis and Joker, Crest, Lil Reeves, Jacob, Steadfast, and Stevie yet to drive this season. In the Constructors, Ferrari still hold the lead, but it's now only 6 ahead of Haas and 7 ahead of McLaren, who've jumped RB into 2nd and 3rd. Alpine remain 4th, with Williams and Mercedes behind Sauber. Just ahead of Horizon Racing, who get their first points on the board, with Aston also doing the same. Red Bull down at the back with just 4 points. And that's how it stands going into our first season break. We've got a week off from Horizon, and then when we come back, it's a race to be drawn live, with conditions and time of day also drawn live. Stay tuned for that one. Hopefully you can join us. But thank you so much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the good stuff. And we'll see you for the next round of the Horizon Racing League soon.